Good afternoon, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman on this wonderful, wonderful day. They're doing construction outside, so we may have been delayed a moment or two, but we're real excited about today's show. We're celebrating too. I'd like to introduce my co-host before we begin.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rose Moulton, creator of the Bloom Transformation Process.
Good afternoon, Attorney Tiffany McEvans, an adjunct professor at Thomas M. Cooley Law School.
Cheryl Ajamu, owner of the Ajamu Group, who created the luncheon during the Detroit Auto Show.
And pretty soon, hopefully, we'll know who the big guest speaker is at that luncheon. Welcome back from California, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And congratulations to the new Mrs. Dollar, Tiffany McEvans. She got married a couple of weeks ago. She's married now. So you just got one eligible here. I'm kidding. Well, don't take me serious.
It was hilarious.
Throw caution to the wind. But congratulations, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Did you have a great
I
honeymoon?
had an awesome honeymoon. Everything was absolutely perfect.
Where did you go?
We went to Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic.
And you got a bit of a tan.
Yeah, beautiful.
Have one.
And you were a beautiful bride.
Thank
I
you,
was
thank
there.
you.
You were just fantastic. Everybody partied the night away. And my son was one of the best men, so I was excited about that. But he gave the longest toast I ever. I mean,
He did a good job.
yeah, well, you know, apples falling far from the tree. But as our tradition, ladies and gentlemen, we always do on this day in African American life in Detroit. And on this day in 1918, Charles Howard Wright, Dr. Charles Wright, was born in Dothan, Alabama. He will attend Southeast Alabama High School and Alabama State College, graduating from each institution in 1935 and 1939, respectively. Meharry Medical School in Tennessee will admit him in the fall of 1939. Wright will earn a degree from Meharry and in 1943. Later, he will become a practicing OBGYN specialist and general surgeon in Detroit. In 1965, he will found what will later be known as the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Before setting up shop in the city's cultural center, the museum was both a traveling exhibit and a home. I had a home on Grand Boulevard. Excuse me. Wright will join the ancestors in 2002. And I, you know, as a person who got the opportunity to get to know Dr. Wright, he was a wonderful man, a very knowledgeable man, and everything. And he'd allow you to agree to disagree with it. Also, I just want to say that there are a lot of people walking these streets today and talking and speaking who they will go down in history too. So when you meet people who spout out wisdom like a Dr. Wright, honor them because they will make Detroit once again a worldwide. You never know.
Yes.
You never know who will be that person. So I just bravo, Dr. Wright. There was a job well done, and his name will go on forever. Now, a lot happened this week, and we're gonna kind of go through some different things. And another thing we're adding to the agenda that happened in Memphis, Tennessee, and we'll get down to that a little later. I read the article, Cheryl.
Okay.
I've never seen anything like that.
Quite interesting.
But we're going to start first with the Navy Yard shooter. This man killed 12 people and injured several others. His last name was Alexis.
Aaron Alexis.
Aaron Alexis, right. Rose.
Yes.
He was paranoid.
You know, we officially don't know what his diagnosis is, but he definitely was suffering from psychosis and delusions.
What does that mean?
You know, it's a lack of contact with reality. Someone who's psychotic or delusional, they're not in contact, not in touch with reality. And he obviously had been spiraling and decompensating for several weeks, according to the reports that's coming out now.
Wow. What What did you think?
I didn't know what to think.
It was
I mean,
devastating.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know, it was just when I saw the interview of the guy that said someone was talking to him, telling him they were shooting in your building, and then he got shot in the head right in front of him. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It was, yeah. The guy said
What
he was
happened?
talking. One of the
Security?
no, this was like someone in the
Workers,
Navy.
two of them standing
Yeah.
together.
They were standing there, and he
Oh.
said the guy came up to him and said, "There's somebody shooting in your building." And when he said that, a shot rang out. He got shot in the head and died right in front of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, this voices, because people say a voice told me. Sometimes you could say, well, a little voice told me, and you could be talking about your conscience or whatever. But how could he, what about this talking voices, Rose, Dr. Rose?
You know, it's when I first heard the story, my immediate reaction was this guy suffered from mental illness, even before any of the reports have came out. Because if you think about it, the last several major tragedies in our country that has involved mass shootings have been from individuals who are suffering from a psychotic disorder, and they're untreated. You know, you don't want to give the impression that someone who has psychosis or schizophrenia cannot be treated and lead a very normal life. But this guy was not treated. So many warning flags and signs went up. And when a person is going through an active psychosis or delusion, they need to be oftentimes hospitalized and treated immediately. There's no other solution to it but for that person to be removed from society, because oftentimes they are a threat to society, especially when you have this individual who was calling. He was calling policemen.
That was the most disheartening
Yes,
part of
he
it,
was
to
reaching
know that
out.
he tried to reach out
Get some help.
and to get this help.
And people, and they dropped the ball.
Definitely.
And I'll tell you this, in our society, unfortunately, many people do not take mental illness seriously. I'll run into individuals on the street, and I recent conversation with a mother who's concerned about her son, who's at that ripe age where schizophrenia and psychosis start showing up, and she's telling me all these signs, and it's obvious he's psychotic, but she's still in denial. She said, you know, I just think his father didn't spend enough time with him when he was younger, and I'm going to call his dad so he can spend the weekend with him.
Well, that comes back to haunt you, because you look at the shooter in Newtown. He ended up killing his mother.
Yes.
And she had all these guns around the house and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, Tiffany, have you ever defended a case where a person pleaded insanity?
Not that he actually pled or she pled insanity, but actually last week I had a client that I had been working for and fighting for the last month or so, because his mom provided me with all types of documentation indicating that he had mental illness. And the original offer from the prosecutor was to send this young man to jail. And jail is not always the answer. And I fought to the very end to get him the actual treatment that he needed. So the outcome of it was that he be placed under probation, but under the mental health diversion program. So
What
that
is
he
that?
actually, it's a program where they actually give the clinical help and support that the individual needs, because the reality of it is, had we just sent him to the Wayne County Jail, as
Yeah.
soon as he gets out, he's going to do the same
Yep.
thing, if not something worse, because he was not receiving or not going to receive the treatment that he needed. So under the mental health diversion program, they actually go and allow this person to get the treatment that he actually needs.
Yeah.
Now, his parents, Aaron and Alexis's parents, said his father said he had anger issues.
Well, it goes back to what I just said. Oftentimes our community is in denial about the realness and the reality and the gravity of mental illness. The father possibly did not want to accept the fact that his son was obviously suffering from a psychotic disorder.
But remember in December when you were on my show and we were talking about that morning
Yes.
around 9:30, which while we're talking about parents ignoring
Yes.
these signs, here the Newtown shooting
Was going on.
was going on. What could a parent do, though? Say if there was a parent out there in our audience who is aware that something's wrong with their child, what would their first step be?
Get them evaluated. Get them evaluated right away. And oftentimes people will say, well, you know, we don't have insurance, we can't afford it, but we have community mental health programs that will provide free and low cost mental health services. So there's no excuse to not get treated and not get this explored and get the proper treatment that's needed. But then the other issue becomes oftentimes, especially with diagnosis like your psychosis or delusion, people have a tendency to not be compliant with their medication because the voices are telling them, especially if they feel like they are being watched or chased as this guy did. So they have to be monitored. It's not simply go in, get medication, and we don't see you again for the next 6 months until you're ready for a refill, because non-compliance is a big issue with this population too.
Right.
Which a lot of times when people are medicated, they feel lethargic and they don't want to take the medicine because it makes them, you know,
The side effects they
the
don't
side
like.
effects to it.
But that's all about finding the right dosage. It is a trial and error, as with anything, you know, that we are putting ourselves on. So it's so much more attention that needs to be brought to mental health issues.
One of the other things that I think is extremely important is we have to also take a look at and understand with our military men and women, they are trained to kill. They are sent and trained to kill. So once, you know, their service or their active duty is over, they just put them back and say, okay, well, go about your business. And a lot of them need to have some type of treatment or some type of, you know, work with a psychologist
to be
or a
adjusted
psychiatrist
back
to be
into the
adjusted back. And
society.
they have like post-traumatic stress and things like that. And I think we as lay people, so to speak, don't really take that into consideration. I could not imagine the things that they see and go through on a daily basis, and then just to come back and say, okay, well, thanks a lot, you're done, go on
Yeah.
about your business. I think that had a lot to do with Aaron too.
Yeah.
I think that we
But he
as a
had
people
had
should have
some
given him
troubles
more.
in the
Even
armed
in
Yes.
the military. So
Yes.
he's
Yes.
so many red flags went up with this
And
guy.
not only that, here the agency that so-called cleared him is the same agency that cleared
Snowden.
Edward
Snowden.
Snowden. So I think the buck needs to stop with them too. I
Yeah.
think they need to be investigated. But you know, last week I had a guest on whose son committed suicide because he had suffered from depression, and he had not taken his medication, and that's a big issue. As you said, the right dosage and stuff. And you see, he was a young man in his early 20s, and like you said, they don't want to feel lethargic, but
And sometimes the meds aren't working. So again, it gets back to getting the right dosage, getting the right meds. The good news.
do you have to admit them to do that?
No,
into
you
a-
don't. Sometimes you do. If a person's a threat to themselves, you know, suicidal or homicidal, that's where the admission comes in, or they can't take care of their personal needs. But typically it can be done on an outpatient basis where, you know, you get those meds adjusted correctly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is just major, because so many, I mean, mass shooting. My thing is, cut out the middleman and kill yourself. I mean, I know that that sounds callous, but why do you have to do that? And
Because the mental health, and this was, I had this debate with my students when I taught at the college years ago when the woman killed her kids in the tub. You guys remember that? And so many people understand that was tragic, but people don't understand just the intricate nature of mental illness. So for him, the voices, it's not just, you know, it's not malicious. You know, he's going out and just want to spray and kill 12 people. It's these voices in his head saying, if you don't get that person, they're going to get you. Or if you don't get that
So
person,
that's
they're going to get
paranoia,
It's
too.
paranoia. It's delusions. And their reality, it's just like me telling you, if I ask you, Brenda, what's the color of my dress?
Brown.
And I say, no, it's not Brenda, it's green. You're going to sit there the whole show and say, Rose is out of her mind because that dress is brown.
And
but
I'm gonna say, yes, Rose, it's green, and I'm gonna pack up and I'm gonna leave.
But that's just
Yes,
an example
yes.
of their reality is real. It's
Right,
real to
right,
them. It's real. So
absolutely.
it's not just a matter of, I need to take myself out. A mother who's been, voices are telling her, you need to do this to your children to save them. It doesn't make sense. I need to drown my children to save my children? What sense does that make? But that's psychosis. That's psychosis. It's a lack of it's a break with reality.
Well, it didn't help in the state of Michigan and other states that they cut down on funding for mental illness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they closed up Northville. That was the hospital here. And is the Lafayette Clinic closed too?
Governor Engler closed just
Yes.
about all of
Yes.
the mental health facilities.
And they became the homeless
right.
population. Off many of them because families, you know, were not able to take these folks in.
And remember in New York just a few months ago, a mentally ill man push someone off the
Yes.
tracks.
Yes.
So you never know. You're standing around somebody who might have some issues, and like they said this week, and Richard and I talked about it this morning on the show. All those people did was go to work.
All they did was go to work. Yeah. And you never know which is why more awareness is needed, because trust me, all of us encounter people on a daily basis who are suffering from psychosis, who are hearing voices. I do this on a daily basis.
Right.
I was just at one of the hospitals that's still open in Saline outside of Ann Arbor, interviewing individuals who are not guilty for reason of insanity. So these are ones that had the insanity plea and were found in GRI, not guilty for reason of insanity. And I'm hearing all the news reports now, getting back to what you're saying about the guy pushing the guy, you know, in New York, saying, you know, this calls for better gun control, better gun control. You know, that's just one factor in this, because just based on off my professional experience, I have treated and interviewed individuals with psychosis who have killed people because of the voices, not with a gun, but have gone over and ran over strangers with cars because they were after them. Or a young man who killed his father with a sword because his father was an alien, you know, trying to invade his body. And tons of stories like this. So again, more awareness is needed. And I always tell people, never take anything personally out there on the street. Someone comes up to you and says something sideways, you know, walk away, because you never know what that person is experiencing inside their mind at that moment.
I'm scared of people like that. I think most of us are, but it just really, really is scary that this person could look so normal. And they could not be taking their meds. I knew a gentleman who was doing that. He ended up young. He was in his 20s. And one day he just started marching in the middle of their residential street with a broom or something, acting like he was a soldier in the army. I mean, he just had a snap. Professional guy, everything, worked for a firm. And so you never, ever know. And Rose, before we tie this up, can you tell us some things that listeners or viewers should be looking out for?
You know, just isolation is one thing. A person who starts to isolate themselves, or they stop engaging in their normal social activities. I oftentimes will hear from parents or family members of someone who experienced psychosis. They don't hang with their friends anymore, or they spend all their time in their room. Also, this doesn't get a lot of attention either, but substance abuse. Sometimes people try to self-medicate with substances. So you oftentimes have a dual diagnosis of mental illness, psychosis, and also drug addiction, because they're using the drugs, the crack cocaine, the marijuana, the heroin, or what have you, to help to try to treat the symptoms. I can't go to sleep because I'm hearing these voices. And with that as well, oftentimes, which is why so many kids who go away to school or in those early 20s, late teens that are experimenting, substance abuse can also trigger psychosis. So lots of people end up having their first psychotic episode after experimenting with drugs. So many different, so just shifts and changes in behaviors, bizarre talk, sometimes preoccupation. We often see this with religion, preoccupation with religious issues. That is a very popular theme in individuals who are suffering from psychosis. Yes, they become hyper-religious, quoting scriptures from the Bible, oftentimes believing that they themselves are a biblical persona. They wanted to, with Aaron Alexis, I heard a lot of people saying he practiced Buddhism, you know, and so people in the Buddhist community was like, well, what are they trying to say? But who knows if he practiced or not? It could have been just part of one of the symptoms where
he really liked the Thai culture too. That was the other. I don't know if that's connected to Buddhism, but
well, you know, fixation. Oftentimes, people will become fixated on one thing, and religion is one of those things they become fixated on, or fixated on people are trying to persecute me.
Yeah, or can they be fixated on a person?
All the possibilities. It's a long series of things, but the main things: shift of behavior, isolation, and just withdrawal from typical activities.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. I mean, that is one of the scariest things, to be mentally ill.
Yeah.
And we as a culture, we tend to look at it as we kind of put us stigma.
Yeah, but it's you know, and even saying it's one of the scariest things, it's treatable, just like any of the physical conditions we have is treatable. And that's different from when I even started studying in undergrad. When I started college in 1990, there were basically no drugs to treat psychosis. All they could do was sedate these individuals and put them in like hospitals or institutions. But the last 25 years have been tremendous in the medications that they have developed that actually treats it, so people can work normally, you know, live lives normally, have families, and you wouldn't even know it. But you have to be treated for this. You have to be medicated.
Wow. Now, let's go to another subject. Miss America was an Indian American from India, India. And she received a lot of taunts, a lot of racial taunts, and so forth. And did any of you hear about that?
Yeah,
We all did.
We all
Yeah.
did.
I mean, this is America. I mean, they acted like, I don't know, what do you think it is that somebody said only reason she won was because her people said they would lower gas prices.
Oh my gosh.
Ignorant. That's what that is.
Perfect word.
And actually, she was born in America.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, it shows you, you know, they always used to say with President Obama, this is a post-racial America. No, it's not, unfortunately.
Definitely not.
Jeez.
And it's going to always be there.
You
That's
know,
just the
but
reality.
you would think they've had several black Miss Americas. I'm not into the Miss America thing. As a little girl, my mother she still watches it. She still watches it. I think it's kind of a superficial contest personally. What do you all think of the Miss America or pageants?
Well, I grew up like a Miss America fan. I used to look at it like every time it came on. So I remember when Janelle Commission won Miss Universe. She was like the first black.
Wow.
I was a little girl. Vanessa Williams, you know, you watch and you like hoping that, you know, if we can get to the semifinals, somebody black will get there.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then when it's like, oh, we didn't make it, then we'll change channels. Like, oh, we don't want to see it anymore. But, you know, I thought it was like a good way because I thought that's, you know, how they got scholarships. You know, when I was looking at it, they would say if you won, you would get like scholarships.
Education paid
You would
for.
get a car, you would get a trip. You know, that was, you know, exciting to me, but I don't really hear about that now.
They say you represent America, but do you really represent America? Debbie Turner?
Yeah, she was she was
Miss America.
yeah, but she was on Good Morning America. She was some type of doctor. She's a veterinarian.
Well, I remember when she was Miss America, she came to Southfield High. And my daughter Courtney was a little girl, and she loved Miss America pageants. So she got to meet Miss America, and she was really geeked. But the thing about it, she was just a normal, beautiful young lady with a crown. And I was so happy for her. But then you look, like they say, today's news is tomorrow's toilet paper. What happened to Vanessa Williams?
Which was probably the best thing that could have happened.
Right. It
I'd say
became
no
a-
such thing as bad PR, right?
Right. It became a
Right.
blessing in disguise because she had to recreate herself
Yes.
and showed how talented she was and so forth. So,
What I thought was interesting is that they made a comment and stated that they felt that, or they took the time to make sure all of the questions were on the same level, but then they showed on the news how one question was asked about Miley Cyrus and her performance, and another lady was asked a question about Syria and what was going
Oh
on.
my
and
gosh.
it was funny to think that they actually thought that those questions were all on the same level.
oh no, Syria and Miley Cyrus. Oh my goodness. Well, Jaden Smith made news this week. He said, he tweeted some comments. He says, people used to ask me, what do you want to be when you get older? And I would say, what a stupid question. The real question is, what am I right now? Another comment he wrote was, school is the tool to brainwash the youth. And lastly, a comment, if everybody in the world dropped out of school, we would have a much more intelligent society. Now let's think about Jaden Smith.
And as an educator, that just
Well, not only that, I think about a child who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
Yes.
A child who could do nothing and still be rich.
That's absolutely
A
true.
child who didn't have to do a doggone thing he could build his house, he could have his life. I wonder about the value system. What do you all think?
Well, I don't know. It depends on how Will and Jada actually raise their kids. And from what I see, they that's Will's money. That's Jada's money. All their kids work. They earn their own money. So,
Right.
just because the parents have money, they may not have raised them as if you have money. I don't live in their home. I don't know how they were actually raised, but he's a kid. He's a young man. And I truly believe, to be completely honest, as far as higher education and college isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
Totally
agree with
agree.
that. College is not for everyone, but it's like he's still young.
He's still young. He's
And
a kid.
a lot of
Yeah.
people follow
12,
him. And if
13.
he's saying this at this age to people who are in middle school or high school,
Yeah, he's coming from his worldview. And as you mentioned before, this is a worldview so different than 99.9% of the world population. When I read the article and all the backlash from what he said, I thought to myself, and I've actually said this many times, if I were fortunate enough to have the resources and money that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, I think my kids' primary education would be seeing the world.
Right.
It would
Of
not
course.
be enclosed, and I would probably hire someone to teach them the basics, and then they would go out there and explore, which is what these kids are doing
well, remember they
But-
opened their own school, Jada,
Yeah.
and
in Nevada. I
it was
believe.
founded under the Scientology something or other.
It's funny that this topic comes up because before the show aired, I was sharing with you all a situation. Actually, yesterday, I was at a high school football game, and there were T-shirts and hats and things being sold, and there was a young man there assisting, and he was unable to actually do simple math, and come to find out he was a high school student. So the reality of it is, education is extremely important, but how important is it if our educators are not being allowed to educate the kids? Because from what I've been told, even if a child is not at the level to move on to the next grade, if the parent chooses to pass that student or to not hold them back, then it's the parent's decision, which is a huge injustice for our children, for our future. This young man was in high school, and it was simple math, and he was having a very difficult time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see that a lot at fast food restaurants too. If that computer is not
Oh,
working,
definitely.
and you give them some change, like your bill might be $5.65, and then they type in, $20, and you say, oh no, I got a 10, and they're looking at you like deer to headlights. Like, what? How do I count that back? Because they haven't been taught to, they just depend on that computer.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have to get with it. The educational system has to get with it, especially from some of the things I hear that are happening right now. And I don't want to get into it, but a lot of the kids are learning on computers, and they're not able to ask a teacher.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, that promotion, they've been promoting kids.
Like a social
Yeah.
promotion.
And but you know what? That's the parents' fault at that
right.
point, because a parent's job also is to monitor, is my child learning in school? When my kids come to me and I'm asking them questions about their homework or they're asking for help, I know right then and there if they're on top of it or not. Or I'm like, okay, you need to go back and review that because you're having too much difficulty, or, let's review this or talk to your teacher about that. It's not just a matter of kids going to school, coming home, and going back to school. There has to be some education and monitoring of what the kids are learning done at home as well.
Well, another topic that was brought up on the national scene, Cheryl she sent me this article earlier, and I wasn't able to talk to you all about it. But Cheryl, why don't you tell us about the woman who had too many Coach purses?
Okay, there was this woman in Memphis. She loves Coach. It's just her brand. She owns like maybe 30 or 40 purses. She received a letter from the Coach customer service department telling her she had bought too many purses and to please stop shopping at their stores because they
No.
thought she was a booster. So ironically,
She was paying full price for
yes,
this. Okay.
and she was buying them for
Well,
her
she was buying
granddaughter.
online too
Yeah.
at the outlet.
Yeah, she was just
Okay.
buying purses.
So she raised the Coach flag. No, but
So they asked her to stop buying them. And then they accused her of being a booster, and she had to prove that she actually was not selling these purses. So she had to take a picture of all these persons, they were like, well, you're buying some of the same brands. And she said, well, my,
The same style.
Yeah, so she was buying them for her daughter and
Yeah.
granddaughter, and that's why she was buying duplicates.
And is that a lot of persons? No,
Yeah.
just
Well, I guess to them, because she was just buying that brand.
Yes.
So ironically, the CEO of Coach sends her a letter, and he says, thank you for buying Coach purses.
oh my God.
Here's a coupon for $100 out. But they pretty much barred her from shop. They don't want her shopping there. Isn't that amazing?
When he sent her the letter to thank her, now is he welcoming her back?
No, he didn't know that the customer
did not
service
know.
department
Had contacted her
Yes,
to
so she got
chastise
two.
her.
Yes, so
Oh,
they were
wow.
treating her like she was some type of thief, where she had to prove that she actually was not selling these purses.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and then the president of the company says, "We're so glad for your business.
Yeah.
Please shop with us
Because that
again."
is business.
So yeah, now she's like, "Do I really want to shop there
Yeah,
again?"
yeah.
But I thought it was just an interesting point in that, are they, what made them do that? I mean, some women buy a lot of brand. They may buy the same shoes. So why would they do that? In this economy, they should be glad that somebody's shopping.
Absolutely.
Instead of saying, "Oh, you're shopping too much. You're buying too many." I just thought it was really
Wow.
an interesting
And she
story.
was a woman from Memphis. She's a nurse, married. She just had 30. I mean,
Yeah.
I think my daughter has 30, honestly, because I bought her one for her 12th birthday.
And she's
Little
probably
red
been
one.
buying
She
them.
still has them. She still has
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Wow.
But isn't that strange how things go? Now, we had another article that cropped up yesterday about welfare recipients and community
Oh, yeah.
service. Rose, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, when I saw this, I actually, my first thought was, wow, I'm surprised it took this long.
Tell the audience what it was in case they missed it.
Well, basically, it's a proposal to mandate individuals that are receiving public service to perform community service at some point. So it's not continuous community service, not like they have to go out and spend 40 hours a week, doing something, but there will be some requirement, a minimal requirement to perform some type of community service as a way of kind of giving back for the assistance that they're receiving.
Right.
And so 27-9 vote on Wednesday, the state Senate passed the community service bill, which will require people receiving, like I said, food stamps or other public assistance to perform community service.
Well, some people brought up the fact that what if this person has children, how would they be able to do the community service if they can't pay a babysitter? Thoughts, ladies?
I was going to say, because it's one thing as a parent, I encourage with me and my kids, take your kids with you, depending on where the community
Yeah.
service is. I like to, my children, especially the ones in high school and even the younger ones, volunteer for things. So it's good to introduce your kids if they are age appropriate to even doing volunteer work if it's in an area that like I said, is age appropriate for them and it would be suitable to bring a child there. But there's ways to figure it out.
What the issue was, there was a senator actually from Michigan, Senator Gregory. His issue with it was that the community service would cut down on the amount of money that the single mom or the individual would get for the daycare. So, he wasn't against the community service. He agreed that, there's not an issue with doing community service, but there should be other parameters and things put in place. What if you're already working? There's some individuals that are receiving assistance and they do work, or they are in school, but they just are not making enough to survive or to live. So what the issue was, he's not saying that he's against the community service, which I too agree that that's not a bad idea. His whole issue and concern was it's actually cutting down on the amount that the individual would receive.
Cheryl?
I think it's good to do community service. I know a couple of years ago I would do volunteer work for Habitat, and there were a lot of that was part of if you were getting a home, you had to put sweat equity in. So I think it's a good idea. I didn't know about their funding would be cut or anything like that, but I thought that you know, it's a good idea, you know, because you're kind of helping, and you could be helping somebody else while, you know, you're getting assistance yourself. I think it's a good idea.
Well, this Senator John Hume says, I think there's nothing wrong with folks having some skin in the game, helping the community that's been helping them for so long.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
I don't either. I know a lot of people do. I think that people should do something. It shows their children at least a work ethic. You know, if you don't see a work ethic, sometimes it's hard to get one if you're a child.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's generational, then this is the ethic that we're on public assistance. But like Tiffany said, there are a lot of people on public assistance that are working. They're still below the poverty line.
Right.
And all the parameters in this hasn't been spelled out. So we don't know if they're going to require, you know, 5 hours a year or whatever it may be. But all that has to be taken into consideration when laying out all the guidelines and parameters.
And they were asking last night, because they talked about it last night on Let It Rip, and one of the comments was how much money is going to be taken into consideration for how many hours? Is it $1 per one whole hour of community service, or what exactly are the underlying rules behind it, which I honestly don't know. But I am aware that also with doing community service, a lot of people have been hired from doing
Great point.
community
Great
service.
point.
And you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, and some people say that prisoners should be the one required to do community service too when they're on probation. What do you think about that, Tiffany?
Well, they do. They're not all, but there is a work release program that a lot of individuals that are placed on probation have to do. If you're ever driving, say, down the freeway, or and you see the gentlemen or young ladies with the orange vest on cleaning up the lodge, or
I thought
things
those
like
were
that.
the people who were just in court. And
No, those are workforce. That's the workforce program.
Oh, okay.
Explain that one more time.
It's called the workforce program, and what they do, you have to report at a certain time, and it's basically an 8-hour shift. They send you out to whatever location they have for you that day. It could be picking up the paper on the side of the Lodge Freeway, and whatever work they have for you to do. You know, some people get 5 days of the workforce program. Some people get 20 days. It just depends on how many days the judge assessed. Or sometimes there's a sentence agreement with the prosecutor's office that they say, we'll place you on probation, but including in this probation, you have to do so many days on the workforce program. So it is something that takes place now.
Well, another bill that was passed Wednesday affecting unemployment benefits. The new bill would deny benefits to those who became unemployed after refusing to take or failing a drug test required by employers.
Tiffany?
If we were working and we were required to take a drug test, we would lose our job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would have
So
to pass the
if
drug
you're
test.
receiving benefits and they ask you or require for you to take a drug test, either you're going to take it and pass it and continue to get your benefits. If you refuse, just like if any of us, if our employer asked us to take a drug test and we refused, we would lose our job. Once again, I see no problems with it. And I'm
this-
probably going to get some phone calls after I leave, and that's okay too. But the reality of it is I absolutely see no problem with it.
This goes back to what you just said about building a work ethic. I mean, this is the reality of the world, the working world, is that there are certain things you're going to be required to do and to abide by if you're going to secure employment and maintain employment. So individuals who are, for whatever reasons, receiving public assistance, I think it should be a requirement. It should be a requirement to see, and it also helps to make sure that they're using their monies for what it's intended for. We've all heard the stories of mothers or fathers out there who are selling their food stamps for 50 cents on the dollar to individuals so they can get that cash and use that cash for, you know, something else, alcohol, drugs, whatever substance, you know, gambling at the casino, who knows? So again, it's all about building a work ethic and just a general ethic in general. For people to know, okay, there is something that's going to be required of me in this life.
That's right.
Well, I think what goes along with this is I've been hearing a lot of this all the last 2 weeks. They were talking about not enough jobs. The reason why people are out here robbing and carjacking is there are not enough jobs. And I don't think that's altogether true. That may be some of it, but I think that some people are just robbing to survive. They don't want to work. I mean, I'm not trying to take this higher echelon thing about it, but some people, and I've known some people, I've known some criminals in my time, and I'm not even a lawyer, but I taught school. And no, I kept up with my students, and some who did not have a good outing at the end and stuff like that. Anyway, I think that some of them, just that was an easier way to get money.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
It's interesting because I had a young man, very intelligent, clean cut. And I just asked him one day, I couldn't understand. I said, you don't have to answer this question, but you're not my typical client. And I don't understand how you got into this situation. And he explains to me that when he was younger, his mom worked 3 jobs, not because she had to, but because she wanted to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And that while she was working these 3 jobs, he was next door at his neighbor's house who just happened to be the drug dealer. And he sat there and learned and watched how to, cut up the drugs and weigh the drugs and package the drugs.
Got
and
an
sell.
education.
That was what he was learning while his mom worked 3 jobs so she could buy those Coach bags. Or,
And
So-
that was his perception too.
That
mom
was-
didn't have
And
to.
that was the work ethic he saw.
that was the work ethic.
And probably, as far as school is concerned, he did not get any motivation, or it wasn't encouraged, or something, and maybe he didn't graduate. Did he graduate?
He did graduate. And now he is, absolutely phenomenal. He has his own company. He's doing extremely well.
He learned great business skills.
He did. He's doing phenomenal. It was just one of those situations. He learned from it. He never came back to the criminal justice system. We were able to get that conviction removed from his record.
Oh, that's
years
good.
down the line. And like I said, he's doing phenomenal now. But even like I said, when he came to me, he was not my typical client, and that was what he told me. That's how he learned.
Well, is there a chance that the system could criminalize the poor?
There's always a chance. There's always a chance. But, there's going to be unintended consequences with what's ever implemented. But I'm for making people accountable and, again, letting them know that there is some requirement of you in this life. There is some requirement. We have to stop this perpetuation of the cycles of generation upon generation that see this as the norm. This is the way that we can survive. Yeah, maybe it's a bunch of us that kind of have to pool our resources together and be in one house, but the system is going to pay you this much each month, you this much, and this is enough for us to not work and just, be able to eat, maintain a household, combined collective household, and so forth. And it's good to want people to, as we talked about earlier today when I was on, if people are in the same boat together, it's the norm.
That's
When
right.
you're in the same boat, there's nothing wrong with it because this is the way it's done. This is our family business. But when you give people, perhaps through volunteer work, an opportunity to see that things can be done a different way, an opportunity to try out some skills that they may not have even realized they had, it may spark that interest to say, you know what? I may be interested in pursuing this a little bit
And
more.
then discovering a talent.
A talent.
You have to go outside of your own comfort zone sometimes, and other people see you and say, wow, you'll be good at that. You'll be good at that. It looks like you'll be good at that. So these bills are supposed to go to Governor Rick Snyder's desk. So we'll see what happens from there. I'm sure he'll sign it. I'm sure he's kind of signed some laws against me. I tell you, he's going to have a run for his money because not only Democrats want him out of office, but some of his own people want him out of office, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And before we go on to talk about this Black Woman's Bill of Rights, a few of those statements. Rose and I are doing a workshop next week called the New Direction Transformation Workshop. And just briefly, it's next week, Saturday.
And you guys come out, bring a friend, ladies. It's for you. It's for everyone who's interested in just embracing a more fulfilling life. You can come get the tools. It's hands-on. It's experiential. You're going to have a good meal, and you're going to have some great tools to leave with that will allow you to really start transforming your life and moving in the direction that you know you can move in, and just embrace a truly fulfilling, successful life.
Right, and we're really excited about it, and it's going to be at the Red Velvet Room right next to Beans and Cornbread in Southfield on Northwestern Highway, and it's from 11 to 2 on the 28th, and you could go to the website www.newdirectionworkshops.net, or you could go on Facebook to New Direction Transformation Workshop.
Yep.
On Facebook. So I'm excited about that, Rose.
I am too. Looking forward to it.
Tiffany's already gone in a new direction. Yeah.
Jump the broom.
I ran across this and I thought it was interesting. It's the Black Woman's Bill of Rights, but we could have it as any woman's, but a lot of these were kind of through the Black woman. Like you have the right to wear extensions or a relaxer without having someone touch your hair without your permission. Ask if it's real, or accuse you of denying your blackness and embracing Eurocentric beauty standards. And that happens to a lot of ladies who wear weaves.
It happens to ladies who decide to cut all their hair off,
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I thought I
Yeah.
was going to have to really hurt some people.
Really?
How dare you? You don't do that. You don't cut your hair. Why would
Your
you
hair
cut
grows
your hair?
back.
Yeah.
Or the thing is, it's cute, but how long does it take to grow back? Well, I didn't cut it off to test and see how long it takes to grow it back.
Let me see here. Let me see.
It's a contradiction because on one hand, don't have the weave and you can't have all that, but then on the other hand, but you can't cut all your hair off. Hair is hair. We can do whatever. If I decide I want to put a wig on tomorrow,
Well,
I should be able to do that.
you know, but a lot of people, and my daughters wear weaves from time to time, 90% of the time. And I said, you all have hair. But they love the styles. They love the styles. My thing is let your hair breathe a little bit and so forth and so on. What do you all think about hair? Hair is something in the Black woman's community, isn't it?
You want to go
It's
first?
extremely interesting because what we fail to realize is that extensions didn't start with Black women.
Right.
There were several Caucasian women who started wearing extensions long before it was introduced to the Black community, but that's never addressed or looked upon. It's us and our stigmatisms that we've put on ourselves. I remember one time I was at the casino with my mom, and she was an older lady. She walked up to my mom and just rubbed the back of her hair and said, "Oh, your hair is so pretty." And it was like I almost attacked this lady because I felt so violated for my mom. I could not believe that she just took her hand and rubbed it all in my mom's hair. It was just devastating for me. But I remember being a young girl, and my hair was thick and coarse, and my sister's hair was much finer and longer, and she would jump around and swing her hair, and my mom shut that down when we were little. In our house, there was no such thing as good hair
Bad
or
hair,
anything
yeah.
like that. And she told us when we were younger, one day you're going to appreciate it. And now I do, because I'll get my hair done and it'll last forever. My sister get her hair done and it's, gone later on that day. So there is no such thing of, you have to embrace who you are. And if you give attention to what someone else says, that's on you. But the reality of it is, the fact that someone would take time out their day to even comment on you, one, they're wasting their energy, and you need to, brush your shoulder that they took that much time and energy to focus on what you're doing. So I say, if your hair is pressed, if it's relaxed, if it's natural, if it's weave, if it's short, do what makes you comfortable and what makes you feel good about yourself, and don't pay anything else any attention.
Absolutely.
I think it's up to the individual person.
Right. It's funny how people judge you. I was the first girl at my school to wear an afro at Eastern when I was there. And the day I wore it, because we all fiddled with it that night in the dorm, in the dorm, you could just, and the next day, I had it all together. I wore this sharp outfit because we thought if you're wearing a natural, you got to be sharp.
Yeah.
You can't just be dudeish. You got to be.
To the
And so,
nines.
but just walking through campus that day and the looks that generated, you know. And then my cousin, came home to Detroit, and my cousin, he was in college. He was a little ahead of me. He said, Brenda, you must be a militant. You are a militant. You know, it was like, if you got that nerve, you got to be a militant. Then as I was older, because I was always doing things with my hair, I had it cut real short. In fact, when my son was born, some guy asked me, said, what are you? Are you a real woman?
You're lesbian, huh? If it's
I
short.
mean, oh my God,
Ridiculous.
my hair grew fast and it grew back. But I've had people, since I've worn locks, I've been in stores, and people said, "Can I touch it? Can I touch it?" I've had that happen.
And do you allow them?
Well, it depends on who it is.
And
If
what
he's
move you
cute,
in?
If he has on work clothes,
yeah. Okay, let's not. Oh,
right.
Don't get me so excited. You know, everybody, somebody had something on Facebook. What is the first thing you notice about a man? I say teeth. What do you all say?
I've always had, I know this is superficial, but a shoe fetish. If their shoes are good, I think shoes says a lot about a man. But I love the smile too.
Yeah, smile.
smiles.
Well, then after the smile, when they turn around,
Their wallet. No, I'm just
no,
kidding.
no. I kind of look at the shape, their body, but you know, when you get a certain age, he's a man. he's a man. No, okay. You have the right to seek higher education. This is number 4, and speak eloquently without being accused of talking and acting white.
Or either they'll say, you speak so intelligently.
Articulate.
Yeah, you're so articulate.
That's what happened when I was student teaching. I student taught in Highland Park, and my critic teacher was a white lady, Mary Kay Frazier. I really liked her. But she said, you speak so well. That is one of the most insulting things to me.
It is, and oftentimes people don't realize it. They don't realize it. They see it as a compliment, and we still hear it in today. You'll hear them talking about someone like Gabrielle Douglas or someone who's prominent now, and they'll say, "And she's so articulate," and that just burns me because it's this perception like
Ever
if
since
you're black,
they saw Patrick Ewing talk at a basketball game years ago, Lord have mercy, they have dogged us out. But I mean, it's unfortunate, and kids used to say, my students sometimes said when my kids were little, they talk white. And I said, no, they speak right. They just speak in correct English. Subject, verb, you know,
Right.
direct object, and so forth. But there's a whole list of stuff, and we want to get to it, but we can't because we've run out of time again. I just love these discussions, and they play this over and over all weekend. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And I know we kind of got into our own little thing here, but we had a lot to talk about and a lot of opinions. And I'd like to thank you, ladies, for another wonderful week. And once again, Tiffany, congratulations.
congratulations.
Are you just smiling?
I know. Honeymoon is still on.
That's right.
Full force.
Oh, that's good. Golly. So, listen, everybody, we will see you next week. Once again, Table Talk with Brenda Perryman, and we're going to start having some special guests. And we may be filming on location soon. So, see you next time, 1 o'clock on Fridays.
Table